Well, hey, home inspectors. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. When I first started the Home Inspector podcast, Successful Home Inspector podcast, I wanted to do three things to kind of mix it up. I wanted to interview home inspectors first and foremost, interview realtors and vendors, and anybody having to do with the home inspection industry, and I also wanted to periodically review books that, as home inspectors, most of us own our own business, or, we're entrepreneurs. So, we're pretty much our own boss. So we have to be self-motivated. And, I'm always trying to read books to help with that. And when I read a good one or somebody else reads a good one, I like them to recommend it for me. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. I just read a really good book by Peter Diamandis, and actually, he was the main author, Stephen Kotler, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. It's called Bold. And it was a really, really good book. I highly recommend it to anybody who's an entrepreneur or a home inspector or who is an entrepreneur. Basically, he was talking about technology in this book. I'm just going to do a little book review. I'm hoping that it might help you guys, and maybe you'll be interested in read the book. I get nothing from this, except passing on a good book. This book is about Bold. His basic premise is exponential technology and how that's affecting us. He starts off by talking about how the asteroid hit the Earth millions of years ago, and and made dinosaurs extinct, or at least that's the theory. And kind of the big slow moving things, the more agile things survived, and basically technology is that new asteroid. And he talks a lot about Moore's law, which is a law that basically technology doubles every 12 to 24 months. This law came about, the guy's name was Moore, I forget his first name, back in 1965. He noticed that transistors doubled every 12 to 24 months. And it's been observed this law is pretty consistent. So it's been that way with technology and computers. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, my goodness, there's more in my phone right now than I had on my first computer. It's amazing. And even cell phones at one time, were only for really rich people. Now everybody has a cell phone. I can remember when calculators were like that. So anyway, but he talks about exponential technology, and that's kind of what it's all about. And he wrote another book called Abundance, and he's a really positive guy. Most people talk about how the world is going to blank in a handbasket and that sort of thing, but really there's a lot of good things going on when you think about the technology and how it can help solve some problems, medical, in the technology. I mean, you can have someone in Africa, in the poorest country now, with a cell phone, and have just as much technology as the President of the United States had 17 years ago. I mean, it's just amazing. Information now is not just the domain of the rich and the powerful. Information is everywhere. So anyway, and there's ways we can take advantage of this for our business. We need to be agile and not be the dinosaurs that will be, taken by this. But I took some notes here. I hope that's okay. Let me see. The book, it's Peter Diamandis, Bold, and he talks about, the key principle of Bold is that entrepreneurs can solve global scale problems. It's based on the framework of the 6 Ds of exponentials: digitalization, deception, disruption, demonetization, and dematerialization, and democratization. These are a chain reaction of technological process to the path technology takes to create upheaval and opportunity. So when we first talk about digitalization, way back, storytelling was the way, ancestors told their siblings, and they told stories on down. And then we moved up to, the printing press, and each one gave leverage, more leverage. And then the photocopier came along. But, in each, you're talking about a digital representation of something that happened. Now when you think about computers enabled, that can exchange information at the speed of light, it became digitalization. Disruption creates a new market. Kodak was a victim of its own invention. Kodak came around in the 1890s. The guy who started Kodak was he was actually in a chemical business. It was in the paper and the development, and they hung on to that for so long. In the 1970s, I think 70s, early 80s, I mean, they had an astronomical percentage of the market. In 2012, they filed for bankruptcy. And a lot of this was because they kind of ignored the whole digital photography thing. Because when it first came about, it wasn't, the megapixels were really bad and it just wasn't high quality. But remember Moore's Law, the technology doubles every, 1 to 2 years. And that doubling, doesn't seem like much at first, but then it gets ridiculously fast. It's kind of like that example. You guys ever heard that example? That what was it that we bought, or the Dutch bought the New York for a certain amount of money and beads. I can't even remember. It was like $12 or $24, and everybody laughs at that. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what a ripoff!" But I forget, if you put on the interest and it would be a crazy amount today. It's kind of like, would you, and I've heard this example, would you take $10,000 or a penny doubled every day for 30 days? I can't remember if that's exact, but you got to realize once the numbers start getting big, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So, but that's the thing with Moore's Law and disruption. If you think about disruption, think about the record industry, the book industry, Amazon, the Sears and Roebuck, all the big box stores and department stores, they, didn't see Amazon coming, or maybe they did, or I don't know. But so we talked about digitalization, disruption, and like right now, Uber is wreaking havoc with the taxi industry. My wife and I just went to Boston, and we didn't take a taxi the whole time. We took Uber the entire time. It's such a better alternative. The cars are clean, the people are nice, they're glad to have your business, and it's all done through your app, and they're there right away. It was awesome. So, again, disruption, and thinking about your home inspection business. We want to make sure that if disruption's coming our way, we don't want to be the disrupted, we want to be the disruptor. Deception. That's the period of time when the exponential growth, is kind of lurking, but people aren't paying attention to it, and that was kind of like Kodak was with digital photography. So anyway, and then once it gets, there's demonetization. Technology makes things practically free. Digital cameras made film free in a way. It becomes digital, measured in megapixels. Computers are becoming cheaper and cheaper, with our smartphones having more processing power than multi-million-dollar supercomputers once did. Many sophisticated apps are already free. It wasn't that long ago when video editing software that you can get for free now from an app cost about $2 million. Knowledge is practically free now. You can find almost any information on the web, and you can read articles, nothing. So if you think about it, that's what D is that? We'll review them. But then dematerialization. Technology advances, they make entire product lines disappear. Your smartphone now does the work of your camera, watch, GPS, and a VCR, a music player and video game console, a calculator and a flashlight, all in your phone. I mean, it's incredible. So, the future is great. The thing I hate about the news and marketing, I studied marketing, that they know that people buy more things out of fear than they do. So, you watch the news, if it bleeds, it leads. It's all these negative stories. And then the advertisements are, life insurance, are your loved ones taken care of if you were to die? And, then, the security thing, somebody breaking into your house. My gosh, it's depressing. And it makes us think that, but that's that's only part of the story. I mean, the future is bright, and there are things that are better about the future. And, you know, we should focus on that and figure out how we can play a part of it. So anyway, I think that's just about the end of my notes. And, you know, another big premise about this is, you know, we can't depend on the government to solve our problems. Entrepreneurs can save problems. I'm not sure if this was in the book or not, but this is some other research that I did. You know, you take Tom's shoes, for example. The guy's name is not Tom. It's meant for tomorrow's shoes, but they said tomorrow couldn't fit on the shoe. It's Blake something or another. But I listened to an interview with him, and I was really inspired. You know, if you're not familiar with Tom's shoes, what happens is you buy a pair of Tom's shoes, and then they provide a pair of shoes for a child in a you know, third world country that can't afford shoes. And he was inspired by this, by a trip he went, and these kids couldn't go to school because they didn't have shoes. And he was like, you know, he was an entrepreneur. We got to do something about this. And you know, it's funny, I was listening to this interview, and I was kind of ho-hum, just kind of listening to it, until they asked him, says, well, what do you want your legacy to be, Blake? And he said, you know, and he said, we can't depend on the government to solve problems. Entrepreneurs solve problems. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers. We can solve problems. He says, I hope that other companies make solving problems and helping as part of their marketing plan. People buy Tom's shoes just because of what they do. That's marketing, but that's awesome. It's awesome. And, you know, we've tried to do the same with our inspection company, you know, and you can do a lot. I mean, obviously you can't, you know, do an inspection, do a free inspection for someone who can't afford it. I mean, because they probably can't afford a house if they can't afford an inspection. But how about like during the month of October, could you give $10 an inspection to breast cancer research or awareness? Or could you do something where, you know, you're helping out a shelter, or, you know, my daughter's favorite is the Humane Society. We've done some things like that where, you know, if you, during a certain time period, you know, we'll make a donation or we'll buy a bag of dog food. You know, they always need, you know, material there. So I think that's the thing. That's the theme. And that's why I like the book. It's about technology, but it's also about entrepreneurs becoming problem solvers. And I think I highly recommend it, by the way. But also think about your business, your home inspection business in that way. Is there some way that you can help solve a problem that's going on in your community? I know that Jerry Lincoln, a friend of mine, owns a home inspection business in Columbia, and I know that I think it was really hot summer, and he did a thing for each inspection. He would buy fans. He had all these fans delivered, and that's what I'm talking about. And you don't think he didn't get some good PR about that and publicity? And I know somebody's probably out there listening going, well, that's kind of cheap if that's all you're doing it for. No, that's not all you're doing it for. You're doing the right thing. But you're getting publicity on top of it. So, you know, do you want to advertise on the side of the bus, or do you want to help some people out and then more people use you because of what you're doing? I think the latter is a much better decision. I know I had a competitor tell me, you know, that I did some donations and stuff, said, seems like you're trying to buy your way into heaven. And I know that, I told my mom that. My mom was like, yeah, well, how's he getting in? So anyway, I think my mom's pretty sharp. So anyway, I do recommend Bold by Peter Diamandis. And everything I've read by Peter Diamandis, by the way, is excellent. He also talks in here, he does the X Prize, by the way, you know, for entrepreneurs to get into space, and he talks about that. I don't know if you guys are aware of it or not, but Charles Lindbergh was actually, you know, the first person to fly across the Atlantic. He was chasing that prize. They had it was Ortega, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. There was a $25,000 prize to the first person who crossed the Atlantic. And Lindbergh was actually the least qualified of everybody who did it. I think over 9 teams tried to do it. They spent over $400,000, but they did it, and it was done. The government didn't do that. That was entrepreneurship. In the spirit of St. Louis, and Charles Lindbergh, as we all know, was the, you know, awesome history about that if you ever look it up. But, you know, it kind of reminded me of the Wright brothers, a couple of years ago, you know, I'm from North Carolina. The Kitty Hawk, it was first flown here in North Carolina, but all you Ohio folks, they were from Ohio, I think Dayton, so it's kind of an Ohio, North Carolina thing. But, you know, there was, you know, they were kind of like Lindbergh, they were the least qualified. These guys ran a bicycle shop. They were actually, the government was backing Langley, you know, the Langley Air Force Base, I think, but there was actually a Langley who was much more qualified than these guys, and gave them a ton of money. But you know, it was the Wright brothers. It was the entrepreneurs that came through with it. So you know, I guess the theme is entrepreneurs can save problems, and you as a home inspector are an entrepreneur. What problems can you solve? And also, you know, the technology. Remember Moore's Law, it's doubling. You know, I do a lot of interviews here, and when I always ask them what changes have you seen, it's always the technology. I mean, we went from handwritten reports with carbon copies to now we're doing them on tablets and zipping them to them right away. And I know there's, I think Dominic, maybe some other software companies, they're putting videos in now. So, you know, and I know there's a few people going, blah, 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 blah. That's just, hey, man. You know, and I've got some haterade talking about technology and drones and things like that. But I'm like, you know, I bet Woolworth said that when Sears came along. And Sears might have said that when Walmart came along. And maybe Walmart and some of the others said that when Amazon came along. You know, don't be the dinosaur that got hit by the asteroid. Be the nimble, be the quick, be the one that survived. So, you know, keep an eye on technology and try to use it to your advantage and be a problem solver. You're an entrepreneur. You're the ones who can help solve and make this world a better place. Well, this has been Preston Sandlin. I own Home Inspection Carolina, but obviously this is a podcast for the Successful Home Inspector Podcast. Please check us out online, and I'll actually put a link on there for this book that I recommend. It's a good read, or get it on Audible. You can listen to it as well. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.